Mountain Creek State School and some of the stuff that we've been doing. The first thing I would probably say on behalf of all the presenters, I think, we don't perceive ourselves as wonderful. We perceive ourselves as average and like everyone else in the room, playing around and trialling a few different things. And we'll just talk about some of the things that we've been trying because we're happy to share. It certainly is pursuing best practice, but it may not be that right now, particularly in our case, because I know that we're learning as we're doing things. So the first thing that I've started with is, I guess, a very colourful diagram, because our school has 40 classes from P to 6, and we've got about 1,000 students at the school. So it does take a level of organisation. I know that there's schools much larger, but being a straight primary school, that's a fair bit of work. Now, up on the diagram, what I wanted to show is that we're very much committed to evidence-based and research work. And our pedagogical framework is absolutely built around ASOT, and we're very proud of that, and we work very hard in that particular field. We also have our social and emotional and wellbeing and our community engagement framework, and because we're talking about high reliability schools, I've put that up as well, because when you start looking at safe and collaborative culture in high reliability schools, ASOT doesn't do everything for you, from my viewpoint. All right, from my humble viewpoint. It also needs some other frameworks and things happening in the school as well. So that's where we use both those frameworks to really guide how we do our work. And from there, you will see from our ASOT pedagogical framework, certain things happen in our school that we're going to talk about today. Three of the things that I'll talk about are ASOT coaches, targeted twilights, and also our mixed ASOT training teams. They're three things that really help progress that particular area of the school. We view high reliability schools, whether it's right or wrong, I'm a learner, so I may be right, I might be on the right direction, I can't guarantee it. But I look at it as a school improvement framework. How we use the high reliability school framework is to really gauge, have we got any blind spots or areas that we're missing in our other frameworks? And that's what we're going to have a talk about today. All right? So that's how it fits in for our school. Just to give you a little bit of context, but not spending too much time on it because you guys do this as well, I'm going to talk about in the top corner here is a picture from one of our professional training teams. Now, many schools have done this, but this is the way that we do it. We have used the reflective scales for teachers, and we've got teachers to reflect on that, and then collected all those reflections with a growth goal in them, and then tried to group them into teams of people of common interests. So what happens then is that our school leaders, and it might be myself, 3 deputies and a head of curriculum, it'll be 4 or 5 people, will lead a team of teachers who are P to 6, specialist and special ed, or from our SEP program. Those people, each team might have about 15 people in it. And just to give you an idea of what is happening, and this is not startling, this is actually from the team that I led, and we were looking at design question 5 in the area of engagement, and we were talking about academic games. I'll just play it for you, but before I do, keep in mind, the lady in blue is a prep teacher. Linda in the middle is teaching year 2. The teacher on the end, Jodie, is in year 6. Jodie gave a wonderful presentation on academic games using a PowerPoint, using Family Feud, and really challenging the kids. We also had someone talk about dominoes for problem solving, using that as an academic game.
5, 9, okay, 6, okay. So I was lucky enough to be able to make it 10. So again, I get a counter, I've made it 10, they go back under there. Really good for rainbow facts and just...
And what if you can't make a 10?
If you can't make a 10, you can pack yours up and get another 4.
All right.
So it sort of keeps going and they shuffle, which is really interesting to watch.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Is that nice?
Yeah.
We'll just pick them up.
I usually do like
All right, and I'll stop it there because I did tell you it was short. And like I said, this is something that happens in everyone's school. If I didn't tell you that those people were from 3 different year levels, it wouldn't have the value. So what we had was teachers learning from teachers right across the curriculum and year levels. So that's one of the things that we had. You'll also note it's an air-conditioned room with food provided. So our teams tend to meet twice a term. We focus on a design question or an instructional element. We share, we learn early in the term. We go test and trial, and we come back in week 8 or 9 to share. How did it work? What did you learn? Teachers learning from teachers. All right, another thing I wanted to highlight here is the school leaders decided to do something different, and we had a targeted pupil-free day or twilight session. What we tried to do was to actually pay teachers for their good ideas, and we got the idea of Marzano money. So what actually happened for about 2 or 3 weeks at briefings, we let people know, if you had great ideas, come and tell us and we would pay you for your great ideas. So over 2 weeks we did that. So the whole staff ended up with a whole lot of money. What happened at our Twilight PD was all the professional learning teams here brought their artefacts, and we had a focused PD on what we were learning. But at the end of it, all the teachers had their money, and it was then announced that there would be an auction. And there was the Marzano wine bottle. There were mugs. There was all the propaganda out there, and teachers were able to bid on that. Now, the Twilight went for 2 hours. The best part went for about 10 minutes, but it was reinforcing that sort of culture. All right, when we're talking about celebrating success and people were pooling their money, and actually some of the wine there, one of our deputies donated a $50 bottle that he picked up from somewhere. So there was a few good items in there too. So, but it really reinforced that whole concept of we value the ASOT framework. How can you play with it and really make it lots of fun and celebrate the good work that people are doing? Having explained those 2 things, I've been the principal at Mountain Creek for 2 years. I've participated heavily in those, but the 3 deputy principals who've been there for many years have been driving this long before my arrival, and also the previous principal, all right? So this sort of stuff has been happening for a number of years and slowly developing. The other part that I wanted to show you today was this area over here. We employed 0.2 ASOT coaches. Now that we all have a bit of flexible staffing and great results money to play with, all schools are doing this sort of thing. One of the things that we are doing is once a fortnight, for about 20 weeks, we take 2 teachers off class. One is in last year, one was grade 6, one was grade 2, and one was in prep. This year I'm getting a bit tight on money, so it's only 2 teachers, but one will be lower, one will be upper. And what happens is that these ASOT coaches come up with these designs. So here's an ASOT coach's classroom where she teaches 4 days a week, but she's experimenting with posting learning goals, proficiency scales, and doing things. It gives her time to play with that, but the other thing that it also does is if there are other teachers who are unsure and want advice, these 2 teachers, Erica Green, Sarah Montgomery, and last year Naomi Amos, were 3 teachers in our school that you could access. They would come and visit and help you do some really fantastic ideas. So that's an example of something in a classroom that's promoting the use of learning goals. And if you look closer, you could see proficiency scales and sub-learning goals, but you've done all that before, all right? You know all that sort of stuff. The next part is a proficiency scale. This is very hard to see, but I'd share it with you any time if you're really after it. What we did last year is looked at our English units. Now, we all wanted to know, how do you write a learning goal properly? How do you write a proficiency scale properly so that it's the same language across P to 6? It actually made sense, and you didn't have this pick your own adventure happening in a school with 40 to 45 teachers, which could easily happen. So what we actually did was target our English units. So each term, the coaches helped each year level to write a proficiency scale for our English unit. So what they did was broke it into sub-learning goals and with a proficiency scale for all our English units. The good thing is C2C doesn't change that much, so this year we don't have to do it. As this is a bit of learning stuff, the thing I would have to say to you is it's not a mistake that we made, but a learning that we did come across is the moment you start writing learning goals for units, you know where teachers' heads go. That learning goals relate to a unit and then somehow it's slipped into summative assessment and things like that. A little bit later, we've taken a different direction this year, and I'll explain that, and that is to help address that particular issue. The other thing that our coaches do is come up with these brilliant resources. And I've got a couple of things here, and they're just things that the coach said to me, yeah, if you go and show them this is something I whipped up. All right, and like really, excuse me just for a sec, they come up with these posters, all right, and what happens is in our school, as teachers start to like these things, they start popping up all over the place. And you can adapt and change things, and I've got to tell you, Caledonian Colour is a publishing company on the Sunshine Coast. The guy who runs it, his daughter happens to be a teacher at Mountain Creek State School. So we do have a bit of an advantage there. So we have these sorts of things all over the place, and the ASOT coaches, now it isn't on our agenda, but they're allowed to explore. Learning goals folder, name class. One of our coaches is already beginning to identify my major learning goal. The sub-goals has actually got parts where they can check in. All right, so do those reflections. So she's really starting to explore that. And this year, she sought permission. I don't know why, but because these guys are really terrific at finding new ideas. She's starting to look at SMART goals and things like that, but also she's wanting to come up with a folder where we start to track data. All right, and look, with you guys have got thousands of teachers at schools too. You're not going to tell 40 or 20 teachers that all of a sudden we're tracking data like this. So what we do with our ASOT coaches is we're just going to play for about a year and a half. Then we're going to go back to the professional learning team, and when we share, the ASOT coach is going to say, I had a go at doing this, this might work. And then the year 6, the 5 and the 4 teacher go, oh, how did you do that? I wonder if and then we're just going to let it grow from there. Okay? So they're just sort of some of the things that we're doing. I'm on a timeline. So we've got to get back to high reliability schools because this isn't an ASOT presentation, although ASOT plays a very key role. Last year, like you, I came to a high reliability schools summit. I've implemented the surveys, but I did it with our our class representatives, so 40 parents, our school leaders, and a selection of key people in the school. When we did those surveys, the first thing that we discovered is we're a rip-roaring school. Everything's great at Mountain Creek. But to be honest, we actually discovered we had an area that needed some work, and we didn't even know we had an area that needed some work. So the high reliability framework, when we looked at safe and collaborative culture, school-wide PBS, Kid Matters and all that, we had all that covered. But our professional learning teams, we never have big staff meetings. We've always had team meetings, but we've always talked about learning. We never talked about student achievement. What exactly do we want kids to learn? What are we going to do with the students who already know it? And what are we going to do with students who don't know it? And let's actually define some actions that come out of that. So if you're picking all that's the Rebecca and Richard DeFore. The high reliability schools framework highlighted that was our big hole. And as we went to higher levels in the high reliability schools, it became obvious that it was impacting on other areas. I won't read that all to you, but that will make sense because I guess everyone's got a blind spot. The next thing that we looked at was our effective teaching in every classroom. The reason I showed you some of those things in the first slides around what is happening at Mountain Creek is, look, you've got to celebrate success. We're all a bit humble. But one of the things we did know is we knew a lot of this would be green. All right, headline indicators like that. I've used the green colour there. All right, so we knew this would be pretty green because there's lots of things that we do that, you know, we're pretty proud of, we sort of get right. But when we looked across the two, we did know we needed to do something about the blind spot. Now, if I've timed it right, I've got just a little bit of time. This is what we're working on now. And look, what I'm going to show, I could show you a calendar, but I won't. I'll save time. There's a calendar. 4 times in a term, we ultimately bang in professional, year-level professional learning team meetings. All right? Easy to do, but if it doesn't focus on something, it's a waste of time. I want to show you this timetable. What we're focusing on this year so that you know, and it would have been great if you could see it. Secondary schools are all over this, timetables. One thing that we did in primary school was we wrote our specialist timetable and then we introduced something called PDK. And PDK stands for Practicing and Deepening Knowledge. So what we did was we looked for times in our specialist timetable and we blocked them out. They're bright orange. So when all the specialist lessons are on, year 1 have got 2 language times in the morning when the year 1s don't have a specialist lesson. That's our response to intervention time, our intervention time. They have 1 in middle session that they can use for maths. So what we're doing at present is really using our professional learning teams for our year levels, and those teams are meeting, but they're deciding what happens in that agreed orange box. It's like the specialist lesson dedicated to intervention. The other thing that happens at those times is school leaders are busy people or claim to be, but what we have decided is those are the times that we do our instructional work. So if I'm going to go and work with year 3, why would I prance around there when they're trying to do a lesson and things like that? I actually go down during those specific slots and I actually have a group of 20 children that we do work with. From there, I can also have a chat to the teachers. We've got things in common. And like really, if I do it well, and only years 3 to 6 are doing our intervention times like this at the moment because we're letting the lower schools settle and we've got a few experienced teachers there that need time to breathe and see how it works before they say yes. So what it also enables me to do is if I go to just 40 minutes, I cover the whole school and I actually do something productive. All right, so high reliability schools, what we're focusing on is professional learning teams today and using that intervention model. And all that, as you would know, stems from Richard and Rebecca Defore's work because that was the big hole in what we were doing. All right? Hope it's of some help.